Coming up in the news, the family of a 4-year-old girl speaking out about her horrific death. A human rights activist calling for immediate child protection laws. And an Abaco parliamentarian shares plans on the revitalization of that island's tourism market. The Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition, starts now.
This is the Bahamas Tonight, Northern Edition.
This is the Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition. Good evening, all. I'm Megan Shepard. Thank you so much for tuning in. As the nation continues to express outrage over the horrific death of little Bella Smith, the Grand Bahama family of the little girl who died tragically in New Providence on Friday, speaking with our ZNS News about their fallen angel. Police say the 4-year-old was assaulted and later died in hospital. Bella lived with her father's family in Grand Bahama for some time before returning to her mother in New Providence. Our Jamila Mizik has tonight's top story.
It was a tragic story sending shockwaves on social media as the country learned of the death of 4-year-old Bella, who once lived right here in this quaint Pinders Point community.
Oh, Jesus. She didn't deserve this.
Our ZNS News team visited the family home of young Deonya Smith, affectionately known as Bella. Family members comforting each other, still saddened by the news. Bella's great-grandmother, Mary Grant, says the family has taken care of Bella since she was 2 weeks old, up until a few months ago when she went to New Providence to live with her mother.
The girl was so smart, man. You know what she used to do? She'll come in, Grammy, Papa cook? Well, Papa ain't cook. Papa ain't cook no breakfast? Oh, Lord, I says, no. Go ask him. I scared. You scared of your Papa? She'll go in the yard and she'll find the flower and she'll pick it. Mommy, Grammy. They say, Grammy, this one is for you.
Family member Stephanie Moss says she advised Bella's mother to give her to her father's family to take care of her.
She told me, she said, Alex's family wanted Bella, and if I think she should do it, and I told her, if you think you can't take care of your child, you can't support for your child, then it's best you give your child a better life. I told her to sign everything and handle her to the family, but unfortunately she didn't handle everything.
Cousin Shaniqua Marshall Thompson says when they found out the news, they were heartbroken.
And I start screaming and crying, and when I catch myself, I call my mommy and I start telling her, we shouldn't have sent Bella, because they saying that Bella would die. And I said I should have keep Bella. She was saying, but you know what, the mommy asking, saying she was doing so good. She got a job now. She could take care of Bella, and she already powered this and that, and she made it sound so promising that we said, okay, we would give her a chance for Bella to get to know her.
She says she feels like the community should have done more to protect Bella.
It's a sad situation, and it's sad like how Bella died. She didn't deserve it, because I can never hear her say, Hi, Janiqua. Give me the gas of my scream. I want some candy. When you can, I send AJ on the beach. I ain't gonna hear that no more. That's my baby. That was my baby. Oh, Bella.
Now, our ZNS News team also spoke with Bella's father, Dino Smith, who says Bella was a happy, energetic, adventurous, playful child who was very full of life and love. He says Bella was his baby girl and he loved her more than anyone could ever imagine. He says she was his only daughter and he treasured her and always did his best to care for her. He says the horrific incident has left him extremely hurt and numb. Now, a Justice for Bella March has been planned for this Wednesday, November 10th at 4 p.m. at the Independence Park in Grand Bahama. Persons participating are encouraged to wear the color pink. Jamila Mizik, ZNS Network News.
Now also paying respects to the family this morning on behalf of Prime Minister the Honorable Philip Davis and the government was Chairman of the Progressive Liberal Party, Fred Mitchell.
It was appropriate and necessary for me to come by and formally express our concern, deep concern, about the disturbing incidents that transpired with regard to Bella, who was a young girl, sharp, had a great future ahead of her, and whose future has been plucked away and taken away. She was not in a position to be able to defend herself. And you feel in some senses that the society let her down.
Mitchell says that in the meantime, it is important for the community to support the family at this time.
Anything we can do to assist and help, we'll do, to encourage neighbors and friends to stand with the family in this difficult time, because that's the way to get through this. And then we have to apply what lessons we can from what has happened. There are always lessons to be learned so that something like this is not repeated. And it sounds to me like what we all ought to revisit is the idea that it takes a village to raise a child, and therefore neighbors and friends and family members ought to always be watching, because children cannot defend themselves and they have to be protected by the wider society.
The nation's leader, Prime Minister the Honorable Philip Davis, issuing a statement on the death of 4-year-old Bella Smith. The release stating that, quote, "The thought of any child being harmed is deeply distressing. That a child should die in the circumstances being reported rightly stirs up the most profound feelings of disbelief, revulsion, and profound sadness. As we grieve with her family and do all that we can to ensure that justice is served, let us honor her memory. Let us find ways to cherish how she lived, that her name means more than just the way she died. Let us all do that we can to ensure that no other child suffers the same fate. It goes far beyond what our laws can achieve and to the very idea of who we are. There are those in every society whose transgressions defy comprehension. Our job is to do what is necessary to prevent it. Never again should this be allowed to happen. I pray God's mercies in this hour of national grief." End quote. Now, the Vice President of Human Rights Bahamas also weighing in on the horrific tragedy in the nation's capital. The longtime activist says that Bella's death must not go in vain, but rather cause more to be done in protecting young children. He is calling for strict laws to be put in place to prevent future tragedies. Vice President of Human Rights Bahamas, Joseph Darville, has been fighting for the rights of all humans for over 40 years now, and he says that he simply cannot wrap his mind nor heart around the horrific death of 4-year-old Bella Smith in the nation's capital. Darville says that he believes that children are far too easily abandoned and then abused in so many ways. As a school principal for over 20 years, he says he has heard a lot of heartbreaking stories and emphasizes that Bella's death must be a reawakening for the nation.
What I had to experience with children, being molested by, girls being molested by their mother's boyfriend or a friend and so on, or even by their own fathers. And we seem to cover it up too easily. And I don't know, I hate to say that this was allowed to happen by the divine to shock us, because that little angel, I could just feel the energy from her radiating over this country to say, I did not die in vain. Please look after your children.
Darville says that families must be cognizant of every aspect of the developmental stages of children and make sure that they want for nothing. Darville is also calling on the wider community to be a village and more aware.
Where I would estimate that we have 150,000 children at different ages who should be occupying our attention much more than we are doing now. We have certain institutions in the country, particularly in Nassau, we have social services, etc. But those institutions seem not to have their fingers sufficiently on the pulse of what is actually happening at the silent level in our country. And so we need to have a radiant light shined over our whole country to make sure that those precious angels, those jewels that we have in our country, that they are protected from birth all the way through their development stages.
He adds that he sadly believes that these acts of abuse are sometimes facilitated or covered up in the Bahamian society. He says parents and other trusted adults must communicate with children and teach them the difference between safe, good touches and those that are unacceptable.
Well, I think we need to be a little bit more cognizant of exactly what is happening, not to invade families, etc., but to make it easier for children, for example, because children are petrified to pimp on their relatives or their father or their mother. But in the school, we need to teach them a little bit more adequately that their bodies are sacred and they're never to be touched in an inappropriate manner by a parent or by a relative or by any stranger. And once they know that, then they will grow up, and as they reach the age of maturity or sexual attraction and so forth, they will know what is not a comfortable touch or a loving touch, and they'll know what is an abusive or sexual overture. We must instruct our families and mothers in particular that if something is happening to your child, particularly the girl children, you have a moral obligation and also a legal obligation to present that information to the powers that be so that it can be dealt with. We cannot tolerate that.
Darville is calling for the immediate implementation of a sex offenders list in the country.
It's amazing how callously these particular matters are being handled even in the court system. And I think it gives people carte blanche to continue to do the despicable acts that they're doing against vulnerable children, be they boys or girls. And this thing about the register, that is really a puzzling situation. We have the alert now going on, even though it's still not activated. And I call upon the department and the government now, which is dealing with children, to make sure that these alerts are put out there. And maybe if an alert had gone out with respect to that individual and what was happening probably to other children, that child may have been saved. And so the register of offenders, that must be done.
In other news, the Member of Parliament for Central and South Abaco reporting the state of the surrounding Keys during his contribution in Parliament. Tonight, he shares how plans are underway to revitalize air and sea arrivals to propel growth in the North Abaco market. Shashina Rowe-Farquharson reports.
The Member of Parliament for Central and South Abaco, John Pinder, says the Keys account for most of Abaco's economy, as many Abaconians are employed there. But the neglect from the previous administration has hindered progression.
Hopetown is a good example of this. The public docks, the government clinic, the government library, the public bathrooms, and the government school were all rebuilt with non-profit funds. The private community came to our aid and helped clean and rebuild as much as possible. Although we are still missing a public dock in the south, and importantly, the iconic government building that housed the post office, the police, and the district council that services the previously stated Keys, the tourism is rebounding quickly with very high demand.
He says immediate restrictions for aid after Hurricane Dorian and the bureaucracy has been a true challenge. He said it is vital that a true disaster plan of action is created.
I'm reminded of Proverb 3:27. Do not withhold good from those whom it is due when it is in your power to act. It was many weeks before any food or water arrived from the previous government. With the help from our foreign friends and southern Bahamian islands like Spanish Wells, we would have had many more lives lost.
Abaco is also the boating capital of the Bahamas, and he says that industry is coming back.
Experience into an easy and seamless process. The less time spent entering and exiting our waters directly correlates to the more time visiting our shops and restaurants, and more spending in our economy.
When it comes to stopover visitors by air or sea, he says that they are working to maintain the sector.
The boutique tourism model is proven in the Family Islands, and demand is there to expand. Foreign investment projects are needed now. However, I encourage Bahamians to bring forth your ideas. We will help make them realities. There are many projects on the table for Central and South Abaco. The goal is to be business-friendly and, most importantly, Bahamian-centric.
Pinder is confident that this government will bring Abaco back from what he described as the ashes, as he expressed optimism for his constituency. Shashina Rolf-Arkeson, ZNS Network News.
Also making his inaugural contribution in the House of Assembly since the September 16th general election, Member of Parliament for East Grand Bahama, Kwesi Thompson. Thompson thanking the Minister of Works and Minister of State with responsibility for the Disaster Reconstruction Authority for their recent visits to Grand Bahama. However, he adds that he will hold this government's feet to the fire and keep them accountable to the promises they made to the Bahamian people.
Madam Speaker, we still need the school in East Grand Bahama. So we need you to fix it. We still need the seawall in High Rock. So we need you to fix it. We still need the dock and the government buildings in Sweden Ski. We need you to fix it. We need the cemetery expansion in High Rock. We need you to fix it. There are still many people who have been approved for home repairs by the DRE, and I have spoken to and I say in fairness, I have spoken to the minister, and the minister has said that he is going to address it, and so I am supporting you in your commitment to fix it. And I am requesting, when the government does their assessment, to give a timeline in terms of when they will resume the continuation of those repair and that repair program.
Thompson adding that he is committed to working with this Davis administration to achieve the goals set out for the betterment of the country.
We will work with the government to achieve these goals, because it is important for all of our constituents that this work is done. It is not enough for us just to stand up and say, fix it. But it is also incumbent upon us to do what we can to assist in ensuring that it actually gets done. And that's a commitment that I believe all of us on this side would make. But, Madam Speaker, our people have very little patience for a honeymoon period. They want action, and they want relief, and they want it now. So the government must act, and they must act now.
The United States' new international travel policy takes effect today, November 8th. The policy allows fully vaccinated non-American citizens, non-immigrant travelers to enter the United States by air, crossing borders via land and ferry. According to the CDC, people are considered fully vaccinated 2 weeks after their final injection. Foreign national children younger than 18 years of age arriving by air are exempt from the vaccination requirements, provided they are traveling with a fully vaccinated adult. Testing is still required for all air travelers. Stay with us. The Northern Edition continues right after this.